Dear IPC members, my name is Joeri Hofmans. I'm a professor of work and organizational psychology at the University of Brussels, and I'm also co-founder of Twigos, an HR tech company focusing on the assessment of value fit. I'm very happy to be invited by IPC for this keynote, and today I will be talking about organizational culture and doing values-based recruitment in a data-driven way. In his Harvard Business Review article, Eric Sinonway argued that there are 4 types of employees. In the upper right quadrant, we have the stars. Those are employees with a strong skill set who also fit well with the organizational values. They are the top performers, and they really embody the DNA of the organization. Moving down, we have the high potentials. Those employees also have a strong value fit, but their skills still need to be developed. Since they embody what the organization stands for, developing their skills through training and development can turn them into stars. Then we go to the left side, where we have the zombies. Their behavior doesn't align with the values of the organization, and their performance is mediocre. They don't add much, but the cultural damage they do is limited because they don't have a lot of power. And finally, we have the vampires. They are the real threat to your organization. These employees perform well, but in a manner that is not in line with the desired organizational culture. Because they are highly performing, they acquire power and influence. And over time, they also acquire followers, being the zombies who share their different sets of values and aspire to better performance. Soon, before you realize it, there's a small army of vampires and zombies who are attacking your stars and high potentials. We can show this idea with a visual everyone knows quite well by now, a COVID-19 infection plot. We start with quite some stars, high potentials and zombies, as well as with a couple of vampires. All of those employees are moving within our organization and they get into contact with each other. And sometimes, when a vampire meets a zombie, the zombie gets infected and turns into a follower. Soon, before you know it, there are a number of subcultures in the organization, organized around the zombies. And those subcultures might push some of your high potentials and stars to the exit, because they no longer feel at home. Now, let's take a look at the cost of people with low value fit. Let's first look at the zombies. Those are employees with a weak skill set, and they also have a weak fit with the organizational values. Typically, those employees are just doing enough to not be fired. They do not go beyond required responsibilities, and according to research by Gallup, such disengaged employees have higher absenteeism, lower productivity, and lower profitability. When this translates into money, you're looking at a cost of 34% of an employee's annual salary. Let's turn to the stars and high potentials. These are the people you want to keep in the organization because they embody what the organization stands for. However, when vampires and zombies form alliances, those people might leave because they no longer feel at home in the organization. Employee turnover of these employees is quite costly. At the entry level, the cost is 50% of the annual salary. At mid-level, it's 125%. And for senior executives, it's over 200%. Again, this is a significant cost for the organization. Let's also look at what science tells us about the impact of value fit. In a 2005 meta-analysis, Amy Christoph Brown and colleagues demonstrated that higher levels of value fit indeed make employees less likely to want to leave the organization. Moreover, they show that value fit positively impacts task performance or performance on tasks that are part of the formal contract, and contextual performance or going the extra mile for the organization. And finally, when employees' values fit well with those of the organization, they are more satisfied with the job and they are more committed to the organization. In sum, it's clear that organizational culture is important for organizational success, and that making sure that you find people who fit your organizational values is critical. In the words of Edgar Schein, who is the founding father of research on organizational culture, the only thing of real importance that leaders do is to create and manage culture. If you do not manage culture, it manages you, and you may not even be aware of the extent to which this is happening, which is exactly what the COVID-19 plot I showed you earlier demonstrated. In what follows, I will discuss some current challenges organizations are facing, and I will talk about the relevance of those challenges for organizational culture and value-driven recruitment. The first challenge is the imminent COVID-19 recession. The graph on the right side of the slide is showing the number of unemployed workers per job opening as a function of time. And we see that in the previous economic recession, this number went up from about 1 to about 7. This will likely be true for the COVID-19 recession as well. And this will trigger feelings of job insecurity. And when experiencing job insecurity, people are less inclined to leave the organization. And this will particularly be true for those who are initially already more at risk, people with a low value fit. In other words, misfits will be more likely to stay during an economic recession, which is a real threat to your company culture. At the same time, the higher number of job applicants presents organizations with an opportunity. It allows them to only select people who fit their organizational values well. Moreover, by pre-selecting on value fit, one can also reduce the cost of the recruitment process, which might become very costly when there are a lot of candidates. Another consequence of the COVID-19 crisis is that it has accelerated innovation. Traditional restaurants are quickly turning into takeaway restaurants, traditional shops turn into online shops, and the same is true for postal companies, with increased numbers of package deliveries, etc. But what is the role of culture fit when it comes to innovation? Isn't hiring for value fit quite conservative, while innovation is all about change? Well, research is showing that culture fit stimulates rather than opposes innovation, and the reasons are twofold. First, when people share the same values, they are more open to the ideas of others, which is a prerequisite for innovative processes. Second, innovation often comes with disagreements and conflicts, and value fit has been shown to buffer such conflicts. So, when innovation is key, hiring people who fit a culture is critical. A third issue organizations are dealing with is increased levels of automation. Because automation typically replaces jobs or parts of it, it means teams will be getting smaller. In small teams, the impact of an additional vampire or zombie is bigger. There is less room to compensate for the efforts of others, and therefore the contribution of each employee becomes increasingly important. Also, automation is a continuous process. This implies that during their career, people will likely have to learn continuously and be employable so they can switch to new roles. From the organization's perspective, it then makes sense to make such training and development investments in people who fit the values of the organization well, and therefore are more likely to stay. Finally, organizations are turning towards non-standard contracts, such as on-call work and temporary employment. All of this is mainly done to flexibly accommodate the needs of the organization. However, in doing so, recruitment tends to focus exclusively on skills because of two reasons. First, these recruitments are typically carried out by temp agencies who are not part of the organization and therefore have a hard time assessing value fit. Second, these individuals need to be available immediately, which is why good skills are the primary requirement. The big issue with this exclusive focus on skills is that one potentially brings in vampires, and those might after some time push your high potentials and stars to the exit. Up until now, I've been arguing that values-based recruitment is crucial and that this will likely become even more important in the future. But how are we currently doing? Not very good, I would say. First of all, people are typically hired on skills and previous experience, rather than fit with the values of the organization. And the same goes for promotion policies. They tend to be based on performance. Because of these practices, vampires are often promoted and given even more power in the organization. In case the organization does assess culture fit, it's typically done based on gut feeling, which is nicely illustrated by the claim of Howard Schultz, the former CEO of Starbucks, saying that hiring people is an art, not a science. Because this piece of art is plagued by a large number of biases, such as the tendency of recruiters to select people who are similar to themselves, many people feel that although value-based recruitment is key to organizational success, it seems to be hard, if not impossible. At Twigos, we took up this challenge and developed a data-driven, scientific approach to assessing value fit. As the first step of our process, we measure the actual or desired organizational values using an online bottom-up measurement among your employees. Next, we measure the values of each candidate using the same online instrument. Central to the Twigo solution is our AI engine, which compares the values of each candidate to the values of the organization, team, or manager, and calculates the fit scores. Because we feed the AI engine with nothing more than the value profiles, the fit scores are not impacted by age, gender, or ethnicity of the candidate, which means that they are unbiased by irrelevant information. All of this yields a detailed fit report in which you can see on which values there is a fit or misfit, and taking into account this information leads to better hires, which we have demonstrated both scientifically as well as in case studies with a wide range of clients. In the remainder of my presentation, I will talk you through two of our client cases with organizations in the postal sector. The first case study is one with bpost, Belgium's leading postal operator. Together with bpost, we collected two datasets based on their own data, one focusing on the long-term impact of value fit and another one focusing on short-term impact. For both datasets, Twigos ran in parallel to the traditional recruitment process, which means that value fit was measured but not made available to the recruiters. We then looked at the relation between actual employee turnover and the Twigos value fit scores. As you can see on the left-hand side of the slide, candidates with a high value fit were more likely to stay with bpost than candidates with low value fit. And this amounts to a relative difference of 29% when looking at a 420-day term. Although it was clear that high and low fits already started to differ in their retention probability fairly early on. This shows that value-based recruitment is a powerful tool to increase retention for long-term, permanent hires. In the second sample, we looked at short-term impact, finding that already after 30 days, the impact on retention was substantial. This implies that not only for the recruitment of permanent staff, but also for the recruitment of temporary staff, the Twigos tool proved to be useful. Our second case study was with DHL Aviation. Similar to what we did with bpost, Twigos ran in parallel to the traditional recruitment process, which means that value fit was tested, but not used for selecting candidates. We first looked at retention after 21 days, because for DHL Aviation, this is a required period for an economic break even for a new hire. After 21 days already, we saw a relative difference in retention probability of 10%. Looking at the long-term effects, we see a relative difference of 24%. So, also for DHL, pre-screening on value fit led to decreased employee turnover, and it also reduced the interview time with 36%. In that way, DHL was able to focus their attention on high potentials and stars, or in other words, those people that really fit their company culture and are most likely to contribute to organizational success. To wrap it up, first of all, organizational culture and value-driven recruitment are of key importance for productivity, morale, and company performance. Second, academic research shows that organizational culture and value fit are important in current organizations. And as I argued, I strongly believe they will become even more important in the workplaces of the future, characterized by an increased need for innovation, high levels of automation, and a flexible workforce. Third, whereas value-driven recruitment seems tricky because it is perceived as an art rather than a science, we at Twigos show that data science technology makes the impossible possible. Smart values-driven recruitment allows recruiting more stars at lower recruitment costs, more stars at higher retention rate, less zombies for higher productivity and company performance, less vampires for higher retention, and all of this makes your organization future-proof. Thank you all for attending my keynote, and thanks to IPC for inviting me. In case you have any questions, feel free to click on the link below to email me, and stay safe.